My sister texted me at 2 a.m., emergency. Need $12,000 for rent or we're homeless. I immediately sent it. 2 days later, I saw her Instagram story from Hawaii with the caption, "High Roller Weekend." I screenshot everything, sent it to her landlord with a note. Thought you should know where your rent money went. She was evicted by next week. I, 34M, got the text at 2 a.m. on a Thursday. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling me from sleep. The screen lit up the dark bedroom with that urgent glow that always means trouble. My sister. Emergency. The word that makes your stomach drop. I grabbed the phone, squinting at the message. She needed $12,000. Immediately. Her landlord was threatening eviction, and she had 72 hours to pay or she and her family would be on the street. She included a photo of an eviction notice that looked official enough in my half-awake state. I didn't hesitate. She's my sister. We grew up together in a 2-bedroom apartment where our single mother worked doubles just to keep us fed. When family needs help, you help. That's how we were raised. I got out of bed, went to my computer, and initiated the wire transfer. $12,000. Nearly half of what I'd saved over the past year by working overtime and skipping vacations. My finger hovered over the confirm button for maybe 3 seconds before I clicked it. The money was gone by 3:15 a.m. She sent back a crying emoji and a message saying I'd saved their lives. That her kids wouldn't have to sleep in the car. That she'd pay me back as soon as possible. I told her not to worry about it right now, just to take care of her family. Then I went back to bed, feeling like maybe I'd done something good for once. Friday passed. Saturday came and went. I didn't hear from her, but I figured she was dealing with the landlord situation and getting everything sorted out. She'd probably call me over the weekend to thank me properly and explain what had happened that led to such a desperate situation. Sunday evening, I was scrolling through my phone during a commercial break. Mindless social media browsing, the kind everyone does when they're bored. I clicked through Instagram stories from people I barely kept in touch with. Former coworkers, high school acquaintances, family members. Then I got to hers. The first photo showed a pristine beach at sunset. Crystal blue water, white sand, palm trees swaying in the background. The kind of postcard view that screams expensive resort. The caption read, "Paradise mode activated." I stared at it. My brain tried to make it make sense. Maybe it was an old photo she was reposting. Maybe she'd scheduled it before the emergency. There had to be an explanation. I clicked to the next story. She was at a casino table, chips stacked in front of her, wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before. Her husband stood next to her, holding a cocktail, both of them grinning. The caption, "High Roller Weekend." The next photo showed a plate of what looked like $100 per person sushi. Then a hotel room with an ocean view that probably cost more per night than most people's monthly rent. Then poolside drinks with little umbrellas. I felt my hands start shaking. The phone almost slipped from my grip. I went back through each photo, screenshotting every single one. The timestamps showed they'd been posted over the past 2 days. The location tag said Maui. My sister had taken my $12,000 and gone to Hawaii. I sat there on my couch, staring at the images, trying to make my mind accept what my eyes were seeing. This wasn't possible. There had to be an explanation. Maybe someone else had posted from her account. Maybe she'd been hacked. Maybe the vacation was a surprise gift from someone, and she'd still used my money for rent. I opened our text thread and read back through our conversation from Thursday morning. The eviction notice photo. Her desperate pleas. My promise to send the money immediately. Her tearful gratitude. All of it was a lie. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I sent a text asking if we could talk. No response. I waited an hour and sent another message, this time directly referencing the Instagram posts and asking what was going on. Nothing. I barely slept that night. My mind kept cycling through the betrayal, trying to find some angle where this wasn't what it looked like. But every angle led back to the same conclusion. She'd lied to me, manipulated my love for her and my concern for her kids, and stolen $12,000 from me to fund a luxury vacation. By Monday morning, I'd moved past denial and landed somewhere between rage and ice-cold determination. I wasn't just going to let this go. I wasn't going to call her and have some tearful argument where she made excuses and promised to pay me back eventually. I wasn't going to pretend this was a misunderstanding. She'd made a choice. Now I was going to make one too. I started by doing research. I found her landlord's information through property records online. It took about 20 minutes of searching county websites and cross-referencing addresses. Her landlord owned the duplex she rented and managed several other properties in the area. I composed an email. Professional. Concise. No emotions, just facts. I attached every screenshot from her Instagram story. I included a copy of our text conversation where she'd claimed to need rent money to avoid eviction. I explained that I was her brother, that I'd sent her $12,000 believing it was for rent, and that I thought he deserved to know where his money was actually going. I also mentioned that I'd be happy to provide any additional documentation he might need, including proof of my wire transfer to her account. Then I hit send. The response came faster than I expected. He emailed me back within 3 hours. He thanked me for the information and confirmed that my sister was indeed behind on rent. However, the amount she owed was only $4,000, not $12,000. She'd been given a pay or quit notice 2 weeks ago with a deadline that had already passed. She'd called him on Thursday claiming she had a family emergency and would have the money by Monday. He'd never received a payment. He said he appreciated me reaching out and that he'd be proceeding with the formal eviction process immediately. He also mentioned that he'd be consulting with his attorney about possible fraud charges, given that she'd apparently collected money under false pretenses. I read his email 3 times. She hadn't even needed $12,000. She'd inflated the amount. She'd seen an opportunity to get more money and taken it. This wasn't desperation. This was calculated. My phone rang that evening. My sister. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I ignored it. She sent a text demanding to know why I was trying to ruin her life. I didn't respond. She called from her husband's phone. I answered that one. She started screaming before I could say anything. How dare I contact her landlord? How dare I send him private conversations? How dare I try to get her family thrown out on the street? Did I have any idea what I'd done? Her kids were going to be homeless because of me. I let her finish. When there was silence on the other end, I spoke. I asked her where the $12,000 went. She stumbled over her words. Said it was complicated. Said she'd used some of it for rent and some for other bills. Said the Hawaii trip was a last-minute thing paid for by her husband's work bonus. Said I was being ridiculous and controlling about money I'd given as a gift. I asked why she'd needed $12,000 if her rent was only $4,000. She went quiet. I asked why she'd posted Instagram stories about being a high roller at a casino table if she was so desperate and grateful for my help. More silence. I asked why she'd turned off her phone instead of talking to me when she knew I'd seen the posts. She started crying. The kind of manipulation crying that she'd used since we were kids when she got caught doing something wrong. She said I was being cruel, that I didn't understand her situation, that she'd planned to pay me back before I even noticed, that I was destroying her family over a misunderstanding. I told her there was no misunderstanding. She'd lied to me, manipulated me, and stolen from me. Then she'd flaunted it on social media like I was too stupid to notice. She'd made her choices. Now she got to live with the consequences. She called me every name she could think of. Said our mother would be ashamed of me. Said I was a heartless bastard who'd rather see children on the street than forgive a simple mistake. Said she hoped I was happy destroying her life. I hung up. The next few days were chaos. My phone blew up with messages from family members. Some took her side, saying I should have talked to her first before involving her landlord. Others wanted to know what really happened. A few admitted they'd also lent her money over the years that had never been paid back. My aunt called me to mediate. She suggested family therapy. She said we needed to work through this together because family was forever and money was just money. I told her she was welcome to give my sister $12,000 if money was just money. She stopped calling. The eviction moved forward. Her landlord had documentation of non-payment, multiple violations of the lease agreement, and now evidence that she'd fraudulently solicited rent money for other purposes. His lawyer apparently made it very clear that fighting the eviction would be expensive and futile. She moved out the following Friday, 1 week after I'd sent those screenshots. I heard through family gossip that they'd moved into her husband's parents' basement, that she was telling everyone I'd ruined her life over jealousy, that I couldn't stand to see her happy, that I'd always been controlling and vindictive. I didn't respond to any of it, didn't defend myself, didn't engage. People who knew me knew the truth. People who didn't weren't worth convincing. 2 weeks after the eviction, I got a text from an unknown number. It was from her husband. He apologized. Said he hadn't known she was asking me for money. Said he'd found out about the $12,000 only after I'd contacted the landlord. Said he'd thought the Hawaii trip was paid for with his bonus, but when he checked their account, he found that she'd deposited my money and immediately booked everything. He said she had a gambling problem. Had for years. The casino photos weren't her being a high roller. She'd lost $8,000 at those tables in one night. The rest of the money had gone to the trip itself, and they'd come home with nothing but debt. He said he was leaving her, taking the kids, filing for divorce. He'd already contacted a lawyer. He said he was sorry I'd been dragged into their mess, and that he'd try to pay me back somehow, even though legally, he probably wasn't obligated. I thanked him for telling me and said I hoped his kids would be okay. I meant it. They were innocent in all of this. I never heard from my sister directly again. She unfriended me on all social media, blocked my number, told family members not to mention me in her presence. Update 1. 3 months passed before anything significant happened. I'd mostly moved on with my life, or at least that's what I told myself. The $12,000 hurt, but it wasn't going to destroy me financially. I picked up extra shifts at work, canceled a few subscription services, adjusted my budget. Life continued. Then I got a call from a lawyer. Not my lawyer. My sister's soon-to-be ex-husband's lawyer. They wanted me to testify in the divorce proceedings. Apparently, my sister was fighting for primary custody and claiming that her husband was financially irresponsible and had created an unstable environment for the children. She was painting herself as the responsible parent who'd been trying to hold everything together. Her husband's lawyer wanted me to provide testimony and documentation about the $12,000, the fake emergency, and the Hawaii trip. They argued it demonstrated a pattern of financial fraud and deception that the court should consider when determining custody and asset division. I agreed without hesitation. The deposition was scheduled for 2 weeks later. I showed up with printed copies of every text message, every Instagram screenshot, every email exchange with the landlord. I'd even gotten a statement from the landlord confirming the timeline and the actual amount owed. My sister's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, asked if I had a history of conflict with my sister, suggested that I might be exaggerating or misrepresenting events because of personal grudges. I stayed calm, answered every question with documentation, let the evidence speak for itself. The lawyer asked if I'd ever considered that my sister might have been struggling with mental health issues or addiction that explained her behavior. I said that whether or not she had those issues didn't change the fact that she'd lied to me, manipulated me, and stolen from me. That having problems doesn't give someone the right to victimize their family. That I hoped she got help, but that getting help didn't erase what she'd done. The divorce proceedings apparently didn't go well for her. Her ex-husband got primary custody with her receiving supervised visitation. The judge cited concerns about financial responsibility and honesty. The gambling problem came up repeatedly. Several other family members came forward during the process admitting that she'd borrowed money from them too under various false pretenses. My aunt, the one who'd wanted family therapy, admitted she'd given my sister $6,000 2 years ago for supposedly emergency medical bills. She'd never been paid back and had never seen any medical documentation. A cousin admitted to lending $3,000 for a car repair that apparently never happened. Her ex-husband's brother had given her $5,000 for supposedly legal fees. The pattern was extensive. I hadn't been her first victim. I'd just been the one who'd caught her and done something about it. Update 2. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't know. A woman about my age who said she was my sister's former coworker. She'd heard about what happened through mutual connections. She wanted me to know that my sister had apparently tried the same scam at her workplace. She'd sent a department-wide email claiming her apartment had flooded and she needed emergency funds to relocate her family. Several coworkers had contributed to a collection that raised about $4,000. 2 weeks later, someone saw her Instagram post from a weekend trip to Las Vegas. The coworkers confronted her. She claimed the trip had been planned before the flood and she couldn't get a refund. Said she'd intended to use the donated money for moving expenses, but decided 1 weekend away wouldn't hurt. She was fired shortly after. Not officially for the fundraising scam, but her job performance had apparently been declining and the incident gave management the justification they needed. The woman who messaged me said she wished she'd known about my situation before contributing. Said she felt stupid for falling for it. I told her not to feel stupid, that manipulative people are good at manipulation, and that's what makes them dangerous. I also told her she might want to consider filing a police report. Fraud is fraud, regardless of family relationships or workplace connections. I don't know if she ever did. Around this time, I also learned that my sister had moved out of her ex-husband's parents' basement and was living with a new boyfriend, someone she'd apparently met at a casino. The relationship had moved fast, and she'd moved into his place within a month of meeting him. I heard through family gossip that she'd told him some sob story about her abusive ex-husband and her cruel brother who'd ruined her life. That she was the victim of a conspiracy by her family to destroy her because they were jealous of her happiness. I wondered how long it would take before she asked him for money. How long before he saw the Instagram posts that didn't match her story. How long before he became another person left wondering how he'd been so blind. Part of me wanted to warn him. Part of me knew it wouldn't matter. She'd just say I was the vindictive brother trying to sabotage her happiness. He'd believe her until he didn't. That's how these things work. Update 3. A year after I sent those screenshots to her landlord, I got an unexpected call. My mother's sister, my other aunt, the one I'd always been closest to growing up. She wanted to meet for coffee. Said it was important. We met at a cafe halfway between our places. She looked tired, older than I remembered. She told me that our mother, who'd passed away 5 years ago, had left behind a small life insurance policy that had been tied up in estate issues. It had finally been settled. The payout was $40,000 to be split between me and my sister. I'd known nothing about this. Our mother had never mentioned life insurance. I'd assumed there was nothing, which was why we'd scraped together money for her funeral from our own pockets. My aunt explained that our mother had taken out the policy late in life and never updated her beneficiary information. It had taken years to track down the paperwork and process everything through probate. She'd been designated as the executor. She now had to distribute the money. She was telling me this in person because she wanted my opinion on something. My sister had already been calling her repeatedly, demanding her half immediately, saying she desperately needed it, making the same claims about financial hardship and family emergencies. My aunt didn't believe her anymore. She'd heard everything that had happened. She'd known about some of the other loans my sister had taken from family members. She was starting to see a pattern she'd ignored for years. She asked me what I thought she should do. I took a long drink of coffee. Thought about it. Thought about my mother, who'd worked herself to exhaustion to give us a better life. Who'd taught us about integrity and family and taking care of each other. I told my aunt to give my sister her $20,000. That it was her inheritance, regardless of what she'd done to me. That our mother had wanted us both to have it, and I wasn't going to dishonor that intention because of our conflict. My aunt looked surprised, asked if I was sure. I said I was. My sister had made her choices. I'd made mine. The inheritance was separate from all of that. It was our mother's final gift to her children, and I wasn't going to poison that with revenge. But I also told my aunt to give it to her in one lump sum, not in installments. To make it clear that this was it, that there would be no more money, no more loans, no more emergency requests. That this was the last time my sister would get anything from the family without strings attached. My aunt agreed. She said she'd handle it carefully. I got my $20,000 deposited directly into my savings account. It didn't replace the $12,000 I'd lost, but it helped. More than that, it felt like my mother somehow knew I'd needed it. Like she'd been watching out for me even after she was gone. I never found out exactly what my sister did with her share. I heard rumors. Some said she'd paid off debts. Others said she'd lost at gambling. Someone claimed she'd invested in some multi-level marketing scheme that went nowhere. I didn't ask. Didn't care. That money was hers to use or waste however she wanted. What mattered to me was that I'd done the right thing. I'd honored our mother's intentions. I hadn't let bitterness make me into someone she wouldn't recognize. That night, I looked at those old screenshots on my phone one last time. The beach, the casino, the high roller caption, the evidence that had started everything. Then I deleted them. I didn't need them anymore. The lesson had been learned. The consequences had played out. Holding on to the evidence felt like holding on to the anger, and I was tired of carrying it around. My sister made her choices. I made mine. We both have to live with them now. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about that night. If she regrets sending me those Instagram stories. If she wishes she'd been smarter about covering her tracks. Or if she wishes she'd never lied in the first place. Mostly, I don't think about it at all anymore. I've rebuilt my savings. I'm more careful now about who I help and how. I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean you have to let them destroy you. That family isn't an excuse for abuse. that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone face the full consequences of their actions. The $12,000 bought me an expensive lesson about trust and boundaries. The screenshots bought me peace of mind. The inheritance bought me closure. I consider it all paid in full. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.